Hello, this video is for IXL 8.X.8. It is titled Solve Multi-Step Inequalities. And the 3-character code for this activity is 6 Alpha Zulu. So, again, we've done some one-step inequalities. We saw some two-step inequalities. And now we're doing some multi-step inequalities. And just like we did one-step, two-step, and multi-step equations. So the rules pretty much are the same for this one here. We've also done some solve multi-step inequalities where we had to graph the answers. Well, now instead of graphing, we're going to actually write the inequalities using numbers and symbols, right? Those less than, greater than, less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. And one thing we need to remember, and I can see it by looking right here already, that we need to keep in mind that if we multiply or divide by a negative, then we need to flip the sign. So with those things in mind, let's go ahead and head on down the road with this activity. So we have w over 2 plus 3 is less than or equal to 1. So let's go ahead and w over negative 2 plus 3 is less than or equal to positive 1. So we need to, subtract 3 first, right? We've kind of been doing this for a while now. And so those 3's cancel, and we end up with w over 2 less than or equal to, and 1 minus 3 is going to be negative 2. So now the w is tied to the 2 through division. So we're going to multiply, and we're going to multiply by the very number we want to get rid of, which is 2. And what we do to one side, we're going to do to the other. So the 2's cancel each other, and we end up with w is less than or equal to, and negative 2 times 2 is a negative 4, right? So this is w, so you would type in w, and then there'll be a button underneath. There'll be buttons underneath for you to select the proper inequality symbol. So we're going to go ahead and select this less than or equal to, and then type in the minus sign and the 4. So be sure you understand how to use your keyboard and how to use these buttons that are underneath the answer to go ahead and select the proper sign. You're just going to use your keyboard to type in W, select the proper sign. It's a negative number, put the minus sign before it, and then type in the number. Hit enter. Good deal. So here we have 10 is greater than negative 1y plus 9. It interests me that they didn't just call that negative y, because negative y is the same as negative 1y. Maybe they're kind of helping you out a little bit, letting you, reminding you that there is a leading coefficient of 1 in front of that y. We could have just had negative y. It would have been the same thing. So let's go ahead and first deal with, I'm going to go ahead and write that as 1 times y is y. Negative 1 times y is negative y. I'm going to go ahead and write that out now. Is that, so plus 9. And it's just, I'm a little more comfortable with it. That 1 there just kind of looks silly. It's not needed. So let's go ahead and subtract 9 from each side, minus 9. And 10 minus 9 is 1, greater than, and we have negative y. So now we need to go ahead and divide by a negative 1. And why are we doing this? Because the y is negative. We need it to be positive. But whenever we divide by a negative, what do? We change the sign. So negative over negative is positive. Y divided by 1 is y. And negative 1 divided by, or positive 1 divided by negative 1 is negative 1. Now I like my y on the left, so I'm going to put my y on the left, my negative 1 on the right, and notice the arrows pointing at the negative 1, so I'm going to flip it. Remember, another time that we can flip the sign is whenever we exchange the variable and the constant, switch their sides. So I'm going to type in y is greater than negative 1. On the next one, I have 7 is greater than n over negative 1. Going to be a whole lot of multiplying and dividing by negatives here, it looks like. Okay, so let's go ahead and subtract 5 from each side. So when we do that, minus 5. 7 minus 5 is 2, greater than, and we still have that n minus 1, n over negative 1, and the 5's cancel each other, right? So now we're at this here, and we want to get rid of this negative 1, so we're going to multiply times that negative 1. We're multiplying because a fraction is division. And division, multiplication, opposite operations. So negative 1's are canceling each other, but I'm multiplying my negative 1, so that sign needs to switch, right? Leaves me just the n. Now negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. And now I would like to go ahead and switch them each side, so the sign's going to flip. And you make sure that you're flipping the sign properly because it's pointing at the negative 2 here, and now it's pointing at the negative 2 here. So n is greater than negative 2. Next problem, negative 3 is less than r plus 1 over 2. Now don't let this r plus 1 in the numerator kind of freak you out a bit. We're going to get rid of the fraction first anyhow, right? So we get rid of the fraction by multiplying times the denominator. So the denominator is 2, so we're going to multiply times 2. What we do to one side, we do to the other. So whenever we do that, 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. And we multiply by a positive. Be careful, do not flip the sign. That was a positive 2. 2's cancel each other, and I end up with r plus 1. Now I've got the 1 tied to the r through addition. We're going to use the opposite subtraction. We're going to subtract the number we want to get rid of, so we're subtracting 1, which is the same as plus and negative 1. So if we do plus negative 1 over here, we end up with negative 6 plus negative 1. It's going to get more negative to be negative 7. Keep our less than sign, and we have the r. I like to flip their sides. Like my variable on the left, it's pointing at the negative 7. Let's keep it pointing at the negative 7. And we end up with r is greater than negative 7. This one here, 3 times the quantity of v minus 8 is less than or equal to 15. So this is, hopefully you remember that this is going to be distributive property, right? We did properties at the beginning of this course. So 3 times v and 3 times negative 8. So 3 times v is going to be 3v. 3 times negative 8, positive times negative is negative. 3 times 8 is 24. And then let's bring down that less than equal to 15. So now let's deal with the 24 here. And it's negative 24, so we're going to add 24. What we do to one side, we're going to do to the other. Negative 24 is going to cancel each other, leaving us with 3v. Keep our less than equal to sign. And 15 plus 24 should be 39. That's going to work out really nice with that 3 over there, isn't it? So the 3 is tied to the v through multiplication. The opposite operation is division. Every fraction is a division problem. And we're going to divide by the very number we wish to get rid of. So we're going to divide both sides by 3. The 3's cancel each other, leaving us with v. We still have our less than equal to sign. And 39 divided by 3 is 13. So we end up with v is less than equal to 13. Another distributive property, only this time we also have this negative 4 tacked on there also. So let's deal with the distributive property first, and then we'll go from there. So 4 times v is going to be 4v, and 4 times 6, that's positive times positive, so 4 times 6 is 24. And then let's bring our minus 4, and I like to think of this as plus a negative 4. So I'm going to make that plus negative 4. I just kind of prefer it that way. If you want to leave it as minus 4, you can do so. It probably would have been easier here anyhow. But 4v, and then let's combine these like terms here. They're both constants. So 24 plus negative 4 is the same as 24 minus 4. So now you see why I was thinking that it would be easier to think of as 24 minus 4 to get 20. And bring our less or greater than equal to 4. Now we want to subtract 20 from each side, right? To get rid of this positive 20, what we do to one side, we do to the other. So those 20s cancel each other, leave me with 4v on the left. And 4 minus 20 is going to be negative 16. Now I need to divide by 4 to get this 4 off that v that's being multiplied. So we're going to divide. And what we do to one side, we're going to do to the other. 4's cancel each other, leaving us with v less than or greater than or equal to, and negative divided by positive is negative, and 16 divided by 4 is 4. So my final answer is here. V is greater than or equal to negative 4. On this one here, we have Q minus negative 16 over negative 16, and I have minus 68, and I'm going to write this as plus negative 68. Here's why. I hope you used to kind of thinking of it this way as well, because then I see that I have a negative 68 right over there. 67. There we go. Now I want to get rid of the negative, so I need to add 68, right? And so I'm going to add 68 to this as well. And this is why I kind of like it that way, so I realize that this is negative 68, and I'm adding a positive 68 so that they cancel. And I end up with Q over negative 16. I have my greater than equals to, and negative 67 plus 68 is going to be positive 1. Now I can go ahead and multiply by negative 16. And since I'm multiplying by a negative, hopefully you're saying, hey, flip the sign. If you're telling me to flip the sign, you'd be right out there in TV land. Well, computer land, I guess. But the 16s are going to cancel each other. We did flip the sign, so we end up with Q. And 1 times negative 16 is going to be, well, negative 16. Anything times 1 is equal to itself. So I end up with Q is less than or equal to negative 16. On this one here is R over 12. And again, I want to do this as plus and minus, right? So I'm going to do plus negative 51. Notice how I raise the negative sign so I don't mistake it for a subtraction sign. And negative 47. So let's go ahead and add 51 to each side. Plus 51. And those 51s will cancel each other, and I now have my R over 12 on the left. And let's keep my less than equal to. And 47 plus 51. Now, I could pretty much kind of do that in my head, but again, I want to point out that I'm doing negative 47 plus 51. So I'm adding a positive and a negative number. So I know that I actually need to subtract these, right? And the difference between those two is 4. And the 51 has a greater absolute value, and it's positive, so our answer is going to be positive. So we're good to go there. Now I have R over 12 is less than or equal to 4. Well, this relationship here is division, so I'm going to multiply. And I'm going to multiply by the number I wish to get rid of. And what I do to one side, I'm going to do to the other. So the 12s are going to cancel each other, leaving me with R. And 4 times 12, well, 4 times, think of 12 is 10 plus 2, right? So 4 times 10 is 40. 4 times 2 is 8. So add those together, you get 48. So 48. So R is less than 48. So hopefully these, still not my last problem. Okay. I was thinking it'd probably be there by now. Let's take a peek ahead. That's still the last one either. Boy, there's quite a few of them on here. But more than I thought I did. So let's distribute 6 times B is 6B. And plus, oh great, I think I'm going to grab my calculator for this one. And don't feel bad about using a calculator for these big ones like this. The question is, as long as you can do this without a calculator, 948 times 6, it's fine to use a calculator. 948, and that's going to give me, yeah, see, now you know why I used a calculator, 5,688 minus 27 and less than equal to 21. Now you might be saying, why did I make that plus a minus? I could do that, but I've already got 5,688 in my calculator. So now I can just hit the minus the 27, and that's going to give me, I'll have the 6b, bring down that 6b, and that's going to give me a plus a 5,661 less than equal to 21. Now let's go ahead and subtract or add a negative 5,661, and what we do to one side we do to the other. 5,661. Those will cancel each other, and we'll have 6b over here. And I always dislike the variable b, especially because it looks like a 6. That looks like 66. And or greater than equals to, and then 21 in my calculator. I'm just do 21 minus, and then I got that neat shift button, the answer. So I actually did the subtraction there using the calculator, and I get a negative 5,640. Now I can divide both sides by 6, right? 6's cancel each other, I end up with b. And then, now I've already got my negative 5,640 in there. I just need to hit divided by 6, and I get a negative 940. So b is greater than or equal to negative 940. So on these big numbers like this, feel free to use a calculator. And I really like these graphing calculators if you could get one. They're really great. They work better than a cell phone calculator. And there's a lot of reasons why. But strongly encourage you to, if you're going to do math, kind of cell phone calculators are great for whenever you're in the grocery store. But for math class, graphing calculator is going to be so much more proficient. So let's do 5 times d is 5d. And lovely, we got some decimals here. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to use the calculator for that again. So that's going to be a negative number, right? Positive times negative. So I'm going to have 5 times 4.67. And that's going to give me 23.35. And then I'm going to add to that plus 1 is greater than 20. So now I can combine these two right here. I've already got, that should be a negative. So I could put the opposite of the answer. So negative 23.35. And then I'm going to add 1 is going to give me 5d. And this was a negative right here. Remember, that's like plus a negative, right? So I did negative on the calculator, negative 23.35 plus 1, and that gives me and I'm going to put plus, negative 22.35 is greater than 2. Now, this is a negative right here, right? So I've got to get rid of this right here. I got to get rid of that, correct? So I'm going to add 22.35 to both sides. 22.35. And I think I can pretty much do this right side without a calculator, right? That's going to be 24.35. So I'm going to end up with 5d is greater than 24.35. So now I need to divide both sides by 5. The 5's will cancel, leave me with d. And then 24.35 divided by 5 is going to give me 4.87. So D, not B, dyslexia strikes again, and that was a 7. Came off of there with the back arrow. So D is greater than 4.87. For some reason I'm feeling like I want to pause and go back and double check that, but I think I'll be okay. Last one. Look, we're at the last one here. So negative 5 less than equal to, and let's do this distributive property here. So this number times B is going to be 2.51B. Again, they're using B. Thank you very much. Looks like a 6, don't it? And it really confused me because whenever I get in a hurry doing my math sometimes, and they'll put a B in there. Let me show you a strategy I like to use. And this is what I like to do sometimes. Instead of putting a B in there and take a chance of getting confused, I'm going to put an X in there. Now, I got to remember to change that back to a B, because if I use an X inside my answer, IXL is going to say it's wrong. So, yeah, I'm going to change it to X. This is one of my personal strategies I use. Just make sure that whenever you go back and put your answer in, that you're using the correct variable. And then 2.51 times the 7 is going to give you 17, and that is a negative 17.57. And then I need to add that plus 10.06. Okay, so now I can do this negative 17.57, and I can add that to that 10.06. So opposite of the answer, that's negative 17.57. I'm going to add to that 10.06. Look at my calculator, make sure I got it right. Yep, well, don't want to type it in wrong. So I'm going to bring my negative 5 less than equal to 2.51x, which is really b. And I have on my calculator now a negative 7.51. Now I want to get rid of this negative 7.51 by adding 7.51. And what I do to one side, I do to the other, plus 7.51. And Keep my sign. Those are going to cancel each other, leave me with 2.51x, and then -5 plus 7.51, yep, is, oh, wow, looky there, 2.51. That's really nice, isn't it? Because now I'm going to divide both sides by 2.51, and not 2.51x, just 2.51, divided by 2.51. Look what happens here. Those cancel each other, leaving us with just x, and 2.51 over 2.51, any number over itself is equal to 1. So now I want my x on the left and my 1 on the right. It's pointing at the 1. It does have the equal portion, so it is x is greater than or equal to +1. All right, so that is all I've got for IXL 8.X.8, solve multi-step inequalities. Good luck with your activity.